Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L. I just finished watching a Dr. Mike video and I am here to talk about Mahouka Season 2, Episode 10. Now, I'm going to tell you, we're not going to be talking about top moments here because there were none. Alright, that's a lie. There were top moments, but they are not going to be the focus of the episode. The moment I have here on the screen, the Miyuki and Tatsuya kiss, ironically enough, is one of my top moments because unlike the majority of the episode, this one actually makes sense. So we're going to go into this episode. We're going to talk about it. I'm really tempted to say that this is the worst episode of the season so far. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure yet. Because last week I was tempted to say that last week's episode was the worst episode of the season. But right now this one is batting hard. For me, when I look at this episode, it doesn't have the problems of the first episodes of the season, that being the pacing, because we were very focused in one area. But I do feel it has a lot of problems with just basic logic, at least from what the anime is showing us. And in that regard, when it comes to the top moments I feel are all the ones that don't have to do with logic. Any moment where there was logic, I felt like the episode kind of fell down. But every other moment, like a battle scene or maybe just the fact that you had the characters out there working together, moments that they're just nice to see, those are going to be the top moments kind of thing. And that's what I have to say for the highlights of the episode. Other things as well, like the background maneuvers with the clans, that was also a top moment only because it's cool and it was so isolated from Tatsuya. Or, it's like it's so far away from Tatsuya that he can't ruin it with whatever he's doing in this episode. So we're going to go into the episode. I'm going to tell you what I think are the critical areas. I'm going to make an argument for why I believe this is the worst episode when it comes to the logic. And then for you guys, well, those are just points for you to keep in mind. At the end of the day, we're all Mahouka fans. We're all here in Season 2. We've all said we're going to keep watching the show. We're all relatively invested in it. And really, the thing is with this episode and the last one, the problems that are popping up here are not problems that the rest of the season have. And honestly, they're not problems that I believe that future seasons are going to have. When I look at the problems that I think are occurring here, it honestly seems to me like this particular portion was hard to write. It honestly seems to me like something went on in the development of this particular volume that this is being adapted from, because what I see occurring, the needs of the narrative are dictating the events as opposed to the logic of the story. And that's what I think we're ultimately seeing here, and this is where a lot of my apprehension about the episode lies. Now I'm going to try and stay calm as I go through my criticisms here, but there's many areas that we really have to speak about. So let's begin with the first point. So with the episode, we're talking about the logic. I think there is a significant amount of stupidity occurring within the episode. I would even wager, or I would even suggest that there are some imbeciles running around in the series. Now, the problem with Mahouka is that the question is, who is intended to be the imbecile, and who is an imbecile just because the writer has an oversight? That's the real problem. Now, thankfully, there are ways of spotting a character flaw and a bad character, or a bad character move. Character flaws will usually be called out, and this brings me to the first topic of Lena. Lena, in a lot of ways, is the culmination of some of the weaknesses of the earlier season. Now, listen, when I see Lena becoming the damsel in distress, when I see Lena broken at the beginning of the episode, I thought that was a beautiful shot also at the beginning of the episode, probably one of my top moments as well. When I see Lena broken, I remember everything I said, like, yeah, Lena doesn't work as a soldier. The moment that she's reacting like a high school girl, she's a basic high school girl. It was that kind of thought. So with Lena, you come into the episode and you have her here and she's doing something stupid. She's killing the parasites without even exercising the forethought of what could happen if she just blindly does things. And this is where it gets a little bit interesting, right? Because as we see, Miyuki calls out Lena. She calls her out for being stupid. In other words, it's intended that Lena is stupid. Now, the thing is, Tatsuya's characterization of Lena from the previous episode carries through. He said that she's breaking on the inside. This episode goes along with that statement, so we know this stupid Lena is intentional, which is good. Character flaws. The girl's going under a lot of stress. Wonderful. But now we have to really question, who exactly are the stupid people here when it comes to Lena's situation? Because there is some stupidity going on in the background. Because the reality is, Lena is coming into this episode and she's saying, well, as the commander of stars, as Sirius, I'm going to do my best. And this is where my concerns from the beginning of the season really pop up again. Who in their right mind made Lena a commander of an elite military group? Now, I have my answer. I have my suspicion as to how this is, as to what exactly the author was thinking. But before we even go there, I want to say that when it comes to Lena, I agree with Tatsuya that she should not be there because that's the character that we've seen. But Lena existed before Tatsuya ever saw her at the New Year shrine. I know, really insane to believe a character mattered or a character had a life before the main character laid his eyes on her. I know, very novel concept. But that's the problem. Lena must be a tested soldier. Lena must have been doing some kind of work before this happened, such that someone somewhere thought it would be a good idea to make her the commander of an elite American force. She must have had a history. So much so, last episode, Tatsuya had to quantify, or he had to make the distinction that assassinations are different than military enforced executions. That's what Tatsuya had to make the distinction of. But when you come into this episode, what is different from this episode compared to the beginning of the season where Lena was just doing the same, chasing down the parasites? I can tell you the big difference is that the people that she's chasing down now are not masked. But at the end of the day, it's the same thing she's been doing before. And this degradation of Lena is really just the turning of her. They're turning her into the damsel in distress. I mean, you have that wonderful shot of her at the end of the episode where she's bound by chains and naked. You know, naked is vulnerability, bound by chains, a caged bird. This anime loves the idea or the imagery of a woman in chains. That's the big issue with Lena. She has a history, but no, it's when Tatsuya says that she's not worth or she shouldn't be doing what she's doing that things change. So when we ask the question of like, where's the stupidity coming from? There's really only one logical explanation. The incompetent ones are the people behind Lena. Because at the end of the day, it's like, why do you put a child in charge of your organization? Everything that Lena says here when she's acting out of emotion, that is the fundamental issue I've had. This girl's judgment puts her nowhere near being a commander. This girl is an attack dog. That's what she is. She's your best military asset, but she does not have any real judgment. And the real question is, what does the writer want to convey? Well, I think it's also pretty clear. The writer is conveying that the Americans are idiots, because if we assume that the American military are idiots, everything with Lena makes sense because they're pretty incompetent. Everything about the Americans is incompetent. And think about what we had in Mahouka this season. You have balance. She comes in as Lena's superior. She is humiliated by the finest Japanese specimen that is Tatsuya. And then she is put in her place by a loli, who in this episode is shown to be more scared of an old man. So imagine that. This woman, proud American military woman, subordinated by a child. And that's pretty much the issue. I don't think it is a coincidence that all these things are occurring. I legitimately do think, and this might just be also He's a Japanese person. The idea of Japanese superiority over American idiocy, that's not that strange, especially some authors are really proud of their country and all that kind of stuff. And honestly, again, America's the butt of every joke when you're not in America. So it's right. I do think there's a little bit of the bias there, but you know, actually saying America is portrayed to be the idiot in a Japanese work, that's actually not that strange. That actually makes a lot more sense. And saying that the Americans are incompetent, well, the entire season has been about them being incompetent. I mean, they're the ones that let out the parasites. They're the ones that let a demon invasion come into the world because they panicked too much. They're the ones that got subordinated by a child, right? Those kind of things. So that's Lena. Now, let's move on because there's more incredible things happening in the episode. My next target here is going to be Erica, because Erica has a moment in this particular episode where it's just interesting. I am sure that the writer, when they sat down to make this moment for Erica, they were making this a really powerful moment for a female character. But it is funny because Erica ends up being an example of an application of protagonist-centered morality. In other words, if the protagonist says it's okay, it's okay. You're a good person. Even if in the same episode, really the criticisms that the protagonist pair lobby against another person apply to her. So let's just very quickly review when it came to Erica. Erica had gone in and said, I've been prepared for my opponent to kill me ever since I decided I'd kill others with my sword. Erica goes on to say, when I think about someone killing me, well, I can't leave them alive on purpose and draw out their pain. So this makes it seem like Erica is a good character. And you even have Tatsuya saying like, oh, well, yeah, I can't do anything about that. I want you to tell me right now, what is the difference between what Erica is doing and what Lena is doing? What is the difference? Because as you know, Tatsuya premised that conversation with, I gotta give you the same advice I gave Lena. The reality is, what Erica says in this line, what the author wants us to believe is that Erica is standing up for what she believes in. But what Erica is saying, from my perspective, is, hey, I'm too set in my ways to even bother exercising a modicum of thought to explore the nuance of a situation that involves demons possessing bodies who can go on and live on if their host is killed or terminated. It is mind-blowing the way that you have a character saying, well, you know, I'm thinking about if I was going to be killed, I don't want people to be mean to me. I want them to just finish me off immediately. And that's what I interpret when she says, I can't leave them alive on purpose and draw out their pain. Now, I'm going to put a little asterisk. It's very possible because if the author was going for a slight nuanced difference between Erica and Lena, aside from just motivations, it's very possible that that nuance is lost in translation. So I do have to put that stipulation there. But with what I have for the subs that I have, Erica is saying that she doesn't want to leave them alive because she doesn't want them to suffer. Erica, are you not exercising forethought? Are you not thinking about what happens afterwards? No, at the end of the day, when I hear Erica saying this, she sounds like a stubborn musclehead who can't exercise even 1 degree of effort towards having nuanced thought for the future. So, when you have Miyuki talking to Lena, let me just read the sentence. The result of you not listening to what my brother told you. You went around killing every parasite host body in sight without a second thought. You know that's not just Lena who's guilty of that. And now they are free and on a rampage. Lena, how do you plan on making amends for this mismanagement? Let's play the game. Erica, how do you plan on making amends for this mismanagement? Can you really say that what Miyuki said to Lena does not apply to Erica? Heck, we even see a moment where Leo punches a guy so hard that the parasite escapes his body. The reality is, Erica, in her muscle-headed stupidity, not being able to realize that, hey, you know, it's a parasite, maybe your conceptions of what pain is to a demon, maybe we should be careful here. You know, maybe exercise some degree of nuance. No. And this is how you can tell that the characters are. This is how you tell that the character is just bad at this point, because once you have Miyuki, the pinnacle of what is correct in the series, because Miyuki can do no wrong. When you have her berating Lena for killing the parasite host, every single thing that Miyuki says can be applied to Erika. But what happens when Tatsuya is confronted with Erika? Oh, he's like, well, I can't stop that. I'll have to try being harder. No. Screw Tatsuya. That was you trying to make Erika seem cool. In reality, she isn't. And now I have to really ask, Erika, if you're fighting military people like you were in this scene, are you going to fight the military and kill them too? I can only imagine what kind of trouble that's going to open up for you, a high school student slaughtering people in the Japanese defense force that are tied to one of the biggest clans. Oh, but no, it's Erika, right? She doesn't want to leave anyone alive if she can help it. But no, legitimately, this is one of the spots where you can definitely tell there is a break occurring with the logic here. And it all, again, hinges on the fact that the criticisms that Miyuki lobbies against Lena can be lobbied against Erika, and to some degree Leo, but Leo's just following Erika around because Erika's the boss here and no one can say Erika's doing wrong. No, that's crap, man. That's crap. That's propaganda. That's just throwing propaganda around to make Erika seem cooler than she is. No, man, that sucks. But we're not done. No, the wonders of this episode continue. We're moving on to now more of Tatsuya's stupidity, which is a really good segue because Tatsuya he just let Erika roll all over him. Now, the part with Tatsuya that I feel is, actually, I just want to say Miyuki's the smartest person in the episode. I that kind of pains me to say aloud, but it is true. She's the one that's bringing in the logic and is letting us break some of these other parts of the episode. But going into Tatsuya, there was a sequence here where Tatsuya and Miyuki go on ahead at Erika's call, again showing that Erika has Tatsuya by the balls. They go on ahead, leaving Pixie with Erika and Leo, two relatively underpowered people. They leave her with them, and then later on, Tatsuya's like, "Hey Pixie, get over here." And my question is, what is the logic behind leaving a girl that was quite literally just standing around with two of the weaker people in your group? Like, yeah, you put Honoka to back her up, but Honoka doesn't even know what she's doing. So my real question is just, again, why would you do that? And it actually makes sense if you look at this from the perspective of what the narrative needs. Allowing Tatsuya and Miyuki to separate from Pixie creates a situation where Pixie is eventually going to have to catch up to them. And what happens if Pixie has to go off by herself? Well, she can be intercepted. And it's what we see here. We see Pixie get intercepted. This was stupid. Again, I do not see the reason why Pixie was left behind with people who have let parasites be kidnapped before. What is the logic going through Tatsuya's head? I can tell you, there's no logic, because Tatsuya is illogical as much as the author wants to tell you otherwise. That was something that was entirely necessary for only the narrative. The narrative needed to make a situation where that occurs. That's what I'm going to say based on what the anime is telling me. Maybe there was a thing that Tatsuya said like, hey, we're going to let you go by yourself because the parasites are totally going to attack you when you're by yourself. And it's like, Tatsuya, I don't believe you. I don't believe that. That's contrived. I don't know how you came up with that conclusion. But maybe that's an explanation that the author attempted to give in the original story. Right now, leaving Pixie alone to go travel by herself because you left her with the weakest people of the group there, that's stupid. But the good times don't stop just yet. Let's move on to the parasite moment. Now, the parasite moment is just really confusing for me. We were told that when parasites leave the host body, they know nothing about their host. They only pick up knowledge. These parasites are moved entirely by their desire to live. And my question is, why are parasites so upset with the idea of inhabiting robot bodies? Because really, a distaste for robotic bodies that are compatible with you really feels like that's the bias from humans. And I do feel like some things get a little bit muddied here. I also have to ask, why are parasites taking on the appearance of monsters, aside from being a climactic monster for a novel? I do think some stuff gets messed up here, but let's say that parasites actually have an ego, because that's what it really seems like. The moment that the parasites are expressing a preference for something, really does seem to me like they now have more likes and dislikes, even though that shouldn't be happening. One thing I will say though is that in this situation, I think the parasites are right. I really think the parasites are right to want to take back their comrade. And I have one really good reason for that. It's because when Pixie is saying something like, I belong to him, think about what that sounds like to an organism that knows it is imprinted upon by its host. Think about that. Pixie is created by a girl who is like 3 steps away from being Miyuki, and Miyuki is 2 steps into the unhinged territory. You get what I mean? So think about the situation. Pixie is essentially brainwashed to the point of subservience because Hinoka cannot control her feelings. Actually, because that first burst was her feelings getting out of control. Actually, no, from the perspective of your hive mind contemporaries, they're looking at you throwing yourself at a guy that doesn't even care about you, and it's like, yeah, no, guys, we gotta stop this. She's being brainwashed by a horny teenage girl. That's what it is. Imagine if Pixie had Miyuki, as her imprint. Oh my god, like really, we have to be really happy that Hinoka is just so more subdued. Although again, only at 3 steps away from Miyuki. But that's the big issue there. I can't see the parasites as being wrong here, because this is horrifying. Imagine, not only are you in a robot body that apparently aliens don't like, you also think you belong to the worst guy in the show right now. Or she belongs to a guy that would take her into a fight but pull her out the moment she has clothing damage. That's who this is, right? It's ridiculous. But here there is a good point of this just being the bias of the medium. Of course, for a light novel, what is good is having a girl that ceases all critical function just to be your arm candy. That is like the golden standard that light novel authors want for their secondary female characters. They just want them to be eye candy. Of course, anything that threatens the status of eye candy is going to be automatically evil. But let's face it, we know better. This poor alien being brainwashed by Hinoka's hormones into belonging to Tatsuya. We can see why people would be concerned. We can see why respectable parents would be concerned about a daughter doing this. That kind of thing. Do we have any more things to really destroy here? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. You know, at the end of the episode, we have Miyuki tearing into Lena, which I think she properly deserves. Like, Lena needed to hear it, but Erika needs to hear it a lot as well. And then we have Miyuki and Tatsuya having their big kiss and taking out the parasite, and it's like, you know what? That kiss makes sense. That's how Miyuki gets her powers. I actually have no problem with that. It probably is also because Miyuki didn't spend that much time dwelling on it, which was great. But no, overall, for this episode of Mahouka, you know, we end off with Tatsuya giving Lena a shot at being free of the Americans. And again, this is just another statement of Japanese superiority, saying like, yo, we Japanese are so well connected, we can pull you away from America. And it's like, all right, yeah, I believe it. In the universe, the Americans legitimately are pretty pathetic. So that's, I believe him. The Yotsuba have made them into fools. But, you know, beyond that, that's the end of the episode. If I was to tabulate my top moments, I would say, you know, Lena looking dejected at the beginning of the episode was really beautiful. I would say seeing all the kids working together, as bad as Erika I feel was in this episode, that was still, it's still cool to see the team play. Mikihiko has been so cool. Seeing them seal up the parasites, so neat. The Tatsuya Miyuki kiss I think was alright as well. Like, Miyuki pretty much had a spiritual climax. I think we have to respect that. We had the Kudo family be, oh, right, how could I forget the Kudo family? Alright, one last moment. This is as stupid as the previous moments. At the end of the episode, we see some negotiations occurring between the Kudo and I believe it's Kudo, but you know, the old man and the Yotsuba. And they're on 2 of the parasites that were sealed. My question is, where did Erica and Leo go such that they did the same thing they did the first time and left the parasites to be kidnapped? Where did they go? Now, I'm going to put an asterisk on this one because it's very likely, like if there was a segue that was skipped, something like, hey, the Yotsuba are going to be helping us, so let's just be careful here. I don't know why they would say that, but you know, if there was already a pre-arranged agreement, then cool. But we know the Kudo came in there uninvited. So my question is, whose bright idea was it to leave the parasites unattended for the big families to divide them up between themselves? Whose idea was this? I really, really hope that in the next episode, we get to have a moment of Tatsuya in the shower naked, again, ruminating on how he let 2 parasites go. But then again, I don't know. If Erica tells him like, hey, Tatsuya, suck it up, I think he's just gonna do it. Erica has him by the balls, right? I don't have any reason to believe that that Tatsuya has any kind of backbone against Erica here. But we'll have to see. But no, seriously, that final moment, that's pretty stupid. What are you guys doing? You're doing the same things over and over and over. But you know, it all depends. It all depends. Ultimately, the one who dictates what a failure is in the series is the author. What I'm saying, though, is that that's just propaganda. The author has quite a few failures here that are occurring at a very fast pace that they don't want the viewers to notice. But I feel like they are pretty apparent. Especially the Erica one. The Erica one is just choice. Anyway, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Gonna end it there. Till next time, I hope you have a great day. Let me know what you thought down below. Let me know how baseless you think my criticisms are, or if you think my criticisms are on point. Anyway, till next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day.